Hello and welcome to today's BRIC Notice of Funding Opportunity webinar, tailored specifically for tribal nations. Before we begin, I'd like to give a few housekeeping notes on today's Zoom webinar. This session is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the FEMA.gov webinar page in the coming days. All participants are currently on mute to minimize background noise, and cameras are turned off for this webinar format. Please use the Q&A feature to submit questions at any time during the webinar. We have a team of subject matter experts reviewing and preparing answers in the background, and will provide answers to as many questions as possible at the end of the session. To turn on the closed captioning in Zoom, click the CC button at the bottom of your screen. If you experience any technical issues, try refreshing your browser or rejoining the session. You can also use the Q&A pod at the bottom of the screen for additional assistance. At the end of the session, you'll see a brief survey pop up. We'd really appreciate your feedback to help improve future webinars. At this time, I'd like to introduce Victoria Barton, Associate Administrator for the Office of External Affairs, who will be taking us through the opening remarks. Victoria?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for your patience during the recent funding lapse. We recognize this was a challenging period for our workforce, our agency, and most importantly, you all, the communities that we serve. As of April 30th, DHS is fully funded, and FEMA is back to operating at full capacity. One of our top priorities meeting with you today is to discuss the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, otherwise known as the BRIC program. And more specifically, we want to focus on the new funding opportunity that was recently posted. The BRIC program was originally established during President Trump's first administration to advance hazard mitigation and strengthen community resilience. Over time, the program's scope expanded beyond its original intent. Today, BRIC is refocused and improved, returning to its core mission of supporting infrastructure-related projects that deliver real impact. FEMA is committed to strengthening local resilience and delivering efficient, accountable support to communities across the nation. We could not accomplish this goal without you. You know best what your communities need and what projects will have the biggest impact. It is critical that resources reach the communities that need them most. BRIC is a key tool to making that happen, especially as we approach hurricane season and beyond. The goal of BRIC is straightforward: to save lives, protect property, and reduce the cost of future disasters. On March 25th, 2026, FEMA published a Notice of Funding Opportunity, making $1 billion available for hazard mitigation projects nationwide. This funding opportunity reflects best practices for mitigation with a renewed focus on infrastructure-related projects to save lives and reduce disaster costs. For this Notice of Funding opportunity, FEMA has worked to reduce bureaucratic hurdles, focus funding on major infrastructure projects, and reduce federal overreach. We are confident that this improved and refocused BRIC program will deliver results and make America safer. Importantly, for this BRIC funding opportunity, we also ensured that there was tribal nations in mind as it was designed. There is a $50 million tribal set-aside, up to $2 million federal cost share per applicant. The funding opportunity also offers $25 million as Tribal Nation Building Code Plus Up to carry out eligible building code adaptation and enforcement activities. Also, tribal nations are eligible to apply directly as recipients. You do not have to go through a state or territory to access this program. During today's webinar, FEMA staff will walk you through eligibility, application best practices, and also how to navigate FEMA Go. Please take advantage of the information shared here today and make use of the time that we provided for the questions and answers. We hope this session will help all of you to submit strong applications for the projects that will have real impact on your community's ability to weather potential disasters like fires, floods, earthquakes, and hurricanes. Once again, we appreciate you making the time to be here. I'm going to hand things over to our program team now to get us started. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victoria, for kicking us off. Welcome, everyone. I'm Lauren Garrity, the BRIC branch chief. I want to take a quick moment to express how excited we are to be launching this new Notice of Funding opportunity for the BRIC program. We thank everyone for joining us today to hear more about it. Before we dive into the details of the new funding opportunity, let's take a quick look at today's agenda. We'll begin with an overview of the BRIC program, which provides funding for eligible long-term solutions to reduce the impact of future disasters. This includes opportunities specifically available to tribal nations. Next, we'll highlight key information that applicants and subapplicants need to know, with a focus on what's new or different in the fiscal year 2024 and 2025 grant cycle and the opportunities for building resilient communities. As we move into application best practices and common pitfalls, we'll focus on what makes a BRIC application strong and what issues most often lead to ineligibility. We'll also cover the application process using FEMA grants outcomes, offer insights into navigating the system, and then share resources to support your grant application and implementation. Our goal here is to equip you with the knowledge and tools that you need to be successful in this grant program and to enhance the resilience of your communities. We'll close out the session with closing remarks from the Hazard Mitigation Directorate Assistant Administrator, Kristen Fontenot, and then we'll open up the floor for questions from the audience. For its fiscal year 2024-2025 funding opportunity, BRIC prioritizes investments in infrastructure and construction projects that provide immediate and measurable risk reduction to communities that are vulnerable to natural hazards. We also seek to increase the geographic distribution of funds across the nation through this funding opportunity, as well as maximize state and local responsibility for resilience. This year, we're focusing federal resources on projects that directly support infrastructure and risk reduction, rather than investing in a wide range of activities as we've done in years past. This year, the program emphasizes the adoption and enforcement of modern building codes, but limits capability and capacity building activities to those that are directly tied to infrastructure resilience. Funding for new hazard mitigation plans, plan updates, and non-financial direct technical assistance has been eliminated. This reinforces the state and tribal nations' role in capacity building and empowers local entities to lead resilience and risk reduction efforts. The program caps funding amounts for individual projects and applicants. This ensures a broader distribution of investments and prioritizes the selection of new applicants, subapplicants, and small impoverished communities in the national competition. By prioritizing construction projects that are ready to implement, and by increasing the geographic distribution of hazard mitigation investments, BRIC seeks to accelerate and improve nationwide project award and delivery. Our application period opened on Wednesday, March 25th at 3:00 p.m. and it closes on Thursday, July 23rd at 3:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Additionally, please note that FEMA's application deadline may be later than the deadlines set by applicants, such as states or tribal nations, for their subapplicants. So we encourage you to coordinate closely with your state or tribal office to ensure your subapplication is submitted in time to be included in the BRIC application to FEMA. Understanding who is eligible is the first step to accessing BRIC funding and ensuring your application can move forward in the process. Grant opportunities are accessible to a wide range of entities, including all 50 states, U.S. territories, federally recognized tribal governments, the District of Columbia, and subapplicants such as local governments, tribal governments, state agencies, and tribal agencies. While private nonprofits, non-governmental organizations, businesses, and private citizens are not eligible to apply directly for BRIC funding, these entities may still participate by partnering with eligible subapplicants such as local governments, tribal governments, and state agencies to pursue their mitigation funding needs. Subapplications are typically developed at the local level and submitted to the state. The state then reviews and prioritizes them before submitting them to FEMA for final review. Federally recognized tribes may apply directly to FEMA as applicants or as subapplicants through a state, depending on tribal and state laws in their jurisdiction. Tribes are encouraged to reach out to their FEMA tribal liaison to discuss available options. Each state, territory, and federally recognized tribe may submit one BRIC application per funding cycle, which can include multiple subapplications for different projects. Federally recognized tribal nations that have had a major disaster declaration under the Stafford Act in the past 7 years, or that are located entirely or partially within a state or territory with such a declaration, are eligible to apply for BRIC funding as applicants or as subapplicants through eligible states and territories. Due to numerous major disaster declarations, all states, territories, and federally recognized tribal nations currently meet these criteria and are eligible to apply for this funding opportunity. It's important to note that some states may have already initiated their notice of intent phase. Tribal nations applying as subapplicants and local communities are encouraged to contact state officials to learn more about the specific process and timelines for these funding opportunities. For fiscal year 24 and 25, BRIC has a total of $1 billion available. Our funding categories are broken down as follows. The state and territory allocation has $112 million available. Each state or territory can receive up to $2 million in federal share. These funds can support hazard mitigation projects and capability and capacity building activities, but only when those activities directly strengthen infrastructure resilience. The tribal set-aside has $50 million available to tribal nations. Capability and capacity building activities are capped at $2 million in federal share for the tribal set-aside. As with state and territory allocation, capability and capacity building activities here must be directly tied to infrastructure resilience. There are separate Building Code Plus-Up categories. $56 million for states and territories, and $25 million for tribal nations. These are specifically to support adoption and enforcement of modern hazard-resistant building codes. Finally, the national competition, our largest category of funding, makes $757 million available. The maximum federal share per project is now $20 million, which is down from $50 million as we've done in prior years. Phased projects are no longer allowed. Technical assistance is also more limited than before, so projects need to be more complete when you apply. This year, applicants may receive no more than 15% of the total available funding in this Notice of Funding Opportunity, and that is combined across all categories, including management costs. This means that no applicant may receive more than $150 million across all funding categories. Federally recognized tribal nations may apply for BRIC funding through multiple categories. Tribes can apply as applicants for the tribal set-aside, for the Building Code Plus-Up, and for the national competition funding categories. Alternatively, tribes can apply as sub-applicants to a state or territory for the state territory allocation, the state territory Building Code Plus-Up, and for the national competition funding categories. The decision to apply as an applicant or sub-applicant determines which funding categories are available to the tribe. Here are a few important program changes to keep in mind. First, capability and capacity building activities must directly support infrastructure resilience. Second, BRIC does not fund new hazard mitigation plans or plan updates in the fiscal year 24-25 NOFO. Third, there's no enhanced cost share for community disaster resilience zones under this NOFO. On cost share, the standard cost share is 75% federal and 25% non-federal. For small impoverished communities, including federally recognized tribal nations meeting this definition, FEMA can fund up to 90% federal and 10% non-federal. Management costs can be funded at 100% federal up to the program limits. A quick note on management costs. For subrecipient management costs, subapplicants can submit up to 5% of their subapplication budget. This must be added to the scope of work section and identified as a line item in the cost estimate section of the subapplication in FEMA Go. These management costs are included in the total subapplication budget and therefore will count to the caps for each of these funding categories. Our FEMA Go experts will also show you later in this webinar how to add subrecipient management costs to the subapplication. For recipient management costs, applicants can submit separate management cost subapplications for up to 10% of the application budget to administer and manage award and subaward activities. Recipient management costs are requested separately and will not count toward the $2 million state or territory allocation caps. We'll talk more about how to structure applications and avoid common problems later in this webinar. The main takeaway here is to understand which bucket of funding you're applying for, to know the applicable caps, and to make sure that your activity is tied to infrastructure risk reduction and is consistent with the fiscal year 24-25 program changes. When deciding which project best suits your community or tribal nation, Refer to the Hazard Mitigation Program and Policy Guide for comprehensive information on eligible activities. Eligible activities fall into 3 buckets: hazard mitigation projects, capability and capacity building activities, and management costs. At a high level, projects must be cost-effective, they must reduce or eliminate risk and damage from natural hazards, they must meet the latest consensus codes, they must align with the community's hazard mitigation plan and agency priorities, and they must meet all environmental and historic preservation requirements. I'll dive into each of these in a bit more detail. First, to be cost-effective, a hazard mitigation project must be specifically designed to enhance resilience and reduce the risk of injuries, loss of life, and damage to property, including critical services and facilities. Second, to reduce or eliminate risk and damage from natural hazards, mitigation projects should consider future conditions, such as changing weather patterns and changes in a community's risk profile, like anticipated population growth, increased infrastructure demands, and evolving land use. Infrastructure projects should also be designed to address both current and emerging threats over the lifespan of the infrastructure. For example, projects that incorporate future conditions are more likely to minimize loss of life, property damage, and economic disruption, therefore supporting safer and stronger communities. Third, to meet the latest consensus codes, such as the 2021 or 2024 International Building Code, hazard mitigation projects must conform to the latest 2 published editions of relevant consensus-based codes, specifications, and standards. Fourth, to align with the hazard mitigation plan, hazard mitigation projects must align with the applicant's state or tribal hazard mitigation plan, as well as the subapplicant's local or tribal hazard mitigation plan. Applicants are required to specify in their BRIC application where the need for the proposed project types is referenced or included in their approved hazard mitigation plan. Subapplicants, including federally recognized tribal nations that are submitting as subapplicants to a state or territory, are exempt from the hazard mitigation plan requirement for capability and capacity building activities. Finally, to meet all environmental and historic preservation requirements, all activities under BRIC must be in conformance with all applicable environmental planning and historic preservation, or EHP, laws, regulations, executive orders, and agency policies as defined in the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program and Policy Guide. With that, this concludes our high-level overview of the fiscal year 2024-2025 Notice of Funding Opportunity. Next, I'll discuss some tribal-specific information. Tribes have unique opportunities and considerations within the BRIC program, including dedicated funding, eligibility options, and application pathways. In this section, we'll discuss what tribal applicants and subapplicants need to know to successfully access BRIC funding. Let's talk briefly about what it means to apply in FEMA Go. The application is not just a single document upload. It's a series of structured forms that you fill out directly in the FEMA Go portal. You'll need to enter project details, budgets, and attach supporting documents like engineering reports or benefit cost analyses. Before you start, make sure that you have your FEMA Go account set up, your SAM.gov registration is active, and that you've gathered all required documents, including a clear project scope and budget. Having these materials ready will make the process much smoother and will help ensure that your application is complete and competitive. Federally recognized tribes are eligible to apply directly to FEMA as applicants for the BRIC program. As a direct applicant, a tribal government is responsible for submitting both an overall grant application and individual project sub-applications. Tribal governments may choose to submit multiple project sub-applications within their overall application. There's no limit to the number of sub-applications that can be included. When applying directly to FEMA, federally recognized tribes have exclusive access to the BRIC Tribal Set-Aside and the Tribal Building Code Plus-Up funding categories. These are dedicated funding sources specifically for tribes. While BRIC typically requires a disaster declaration for eligibility, the nationwide COVID-19 disaster declarations in 2020 means that all federally recognized tribes currently meet this requirement. So there's no additional disaster declaration requirement for this funding cycle. Applicant management costs are available at both the application and sub-application levels, allowing tribes to recover eligible administrative expenses. We will cover this later in the webinar and how to include subrecipient management costs in your sub-application. Tribes may be eligible for increased federal cost shares if they qualify as a small impoverished community, which can reduce the local funding burden. As an applicant, a tribal nation is required to have a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan in place both at time of application submission and at time of funding obligation. As a subapplicant, you'll enter your project information directly into the FEMA Go system, typically as a part of your state or territory's overall application. Be sure to complete all required sections, upload and clearly label your supporting documents, and closely coordinate with your state, territory, or tribal program contact if you have questions about the process. A subapplicant can be a non-federally recognized tribal agency or a federally recognized tribal agency that chooses to submit its project application through a state or territory. When applying as a subapplicant, the project is included in the state or territory's overall application, and access is limited to state or territory funds rather than the tribal set-aside. States and territories each have a $2 million allocation for BRIC funding and a $1 million allocation for the Building Code Plus-Up. Sub-applicants may also access the national competition funding if the number of tribal applicants exceeds the $50 million tribal set-aside. Management costs for sub-applicants are only available at the project or sub-application level. Sub-applicants may still be eligible for increased federal cost share under the Small Impoverished Community designation. When applying as a sub-applicant, including federally recognized tribal nations submitting as sub-applicants to a state or territory, sub-applicants are exempt from the hazard mitigation plan requirement for capability and capacity building activity types. Throughout the BRIC program, tribal nations have successfully submitted mitigation projects and capability and capacity building activities to BRIC in previous years. Here, I'd like to highlight 3 examples of successful projects that were submitted to the tribal set-aside in past years of the BRIC program. First, the Trinidad Rancheria's Slope Stabilization Project was selected in the tribal set-aside in fiscal year 2022. The project is designed to enhance the safety of residents and visitors traveling on Scenic Drive. Through the project, the tribal nation constructed a pier-supported retaining structure and drainage system. This infrastructure provided slope stabilization to mitigate the risk of landslides. Second, the Citizen Potawatomi Nation's Storm Shelter Project was selected in the tribal set-aside and was awarded in 2024. This project protects residents in an expanding housing community by building a safe room. The safe room will mitigate loss of life during tornadoes. Finally, the Metlakatla Indian Community's Chester Lake Reservoir Project was selected in the tribal set-aside. The project will increase water security for the community by raising a dam. This infrastructure improvement will increase water capture within the Chester Lake drainage basin during drought years. Next, I will hand it over to Rafa Canizares and Kelly Flicka, two of our BRIC section chiefs and subject matter experts, to begin walking through our new national competition scoring criteria and how to craft a competitive application. Rafa?
Thank you very much, Lauren. Because before we discuss the evaluation criteria for the national competition, something to keep in mind is that federally recognized tribal nations do not need to enter the national competition bucket first. Instead, as it was previously described, they have a dedicated tribal set-aside and tribal building code plus-up funding categories before any remaining eligible applications are considered for the national competition. As mentioned in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, tribal applicants must rank their sub-applications in FEMA Go based on evaluation criteria established by the applicant. FEMA will select eligible capability and capacity building activity and hazard mitigation project sub-applications not to exceed a total of 50 million. Once the 50 million is selected, all remaining tribal hazard mitigation project sub-applications will be evaluated under the national competition. This funding bucket makes up over 75% of the total funding in this year cycle, and is how applicants and sub-applicants access funds for large infrastructure projects up to $20 million. Therefore, understanding these criteria is essential for developing a strong competitive application for the national competition. So what is new in the evaluation criteria of the national competition? So we have simplified the evaluation criteria. Technical and qualitative criteria have been combined into 6 criteria and the total score reduced from 200 to 100 points. We have a clear program focus, and the new scoring system prioritizes infrastructure projects, readiness criteria, mandatory building codes, and encourages participation from new applicants and sub-applicants. We have also streamlined the review process. So the review process now is more efficient, allowing for a quicker decision and clear communication of program priorities. The National Review Panel will not be used in this round. FEMA will use an internal process to review and score projects against the published criteria. In the following slides, the 6 evaluation criteria will be described, including information about how projects are evaluated and what you can do to maximize your score if you are applying to the national competition. The first criterion is the infrastructure project construction readiness criterion, which is tiered. Sub-applicants can earn a maximum score of 30 points for this one. Sub-applicants should explain how the project mitigates natural hazard risk to critical physical structures, facilities, and systems that provide support to a community, its population, and its economy. In this context, critical can be defined by your own community, and it could be anything that is important to the function of your community. Please note that purely residential properties do not receive infrastructure points. The criterion assesses the extent to which the proposed project is sufficiently developed to proceed to award and start construction without significant delay. So the following scoring categories are considered. If a project contains basic conceptualization and design, at least 30% design, the project will receive 5 points. Infrastructure projects, including more refined and detailed design, including major systems, materials, dimensions, and draft specification, with a design level above 30%, will receive 15 points. Infrastructure projects with detailed drawings and specifications for bidding, permitting, and actual construction, with a design level of 90% or greater, will receive 30 points. But these documents may also include complete environmental and historic preservation compliance documentation. So, to ensure that FEMA evaluates correctly this criterion, these are some tips. Clearly describe how the project agrees with how infrastructure is defined in the NOFO. Clearly identify key design documents, for example, plans, specifications, technical reports that are signed and stamped by a licensed professional engineer or other certified licensed design professional, and state clearly in the sub-application the design level and what that means. Note in the sub-application the status of permitting and environmental planning and historic preservation review, and attach and reference relevant documents and permits. For this fiscal year, we have a new criterion that rewards applicants and sub-applicants who have not previously been selected in the BRIC national competition. For this criterion, sub-applicants can earn up to 15 points. The sub-application will receive 15 points if it is submitted by a sub-applicant that has never been selected in the BRIC national competition, or if it is submitted by an applicant, state, territory, or tribal government that has never had a project selected in the BRIC national competition. Applicants or sub-applicants can confirm their selection history in the BRIC national competition in open FEMA. FEMA will confirm an applicant's and sub-applicants' prior BRIC national competition selection history and assign the score. The third criterion evaluates the sub-applicant status regarding building code adoption to the most recent versions of the International Building Codes and International Residential Codes, the 2021 and 2024, and also evaluates the sub-applicant's building code enforcement. Evaluation is done in 2 steps. Subcriterion 3.1 evaluates for building code adoption and enforcement, and the maximum point allotment for this subcriterion is 20 points. If the sub-application does not receive any point for subcriterion 3.1, then it will be evaluated for subcriterion 3.2, where it could receive a maximum of 5 points. General tips for this criterion refer to the information that the sub-applicant should provide in FEMA Go. More detail is provided in the following slides. To receive building code adoption points, the adopted building codes must be based on the 2 most recently published editions, the 2021 or the 2024, of both the International Building Code and the International Residential Code. The sub-application will receive 5 points if the community where the project will be developed has locally adopted building codes. The sub-application will receive an additional 5 points if the locally adopted building codes by the community are based on the applicant's mandatory state, tribal, territory-wide adoption of building codes. FEMA tracks the building code adoption status for state, local, tribal, and territorial governments across using the Building Code Adoption Tracking Tool, BCAT. Sub-applicants should review their adoption status in BCAT, and if differs from the actual status, they should submit a copy or a link to the ordinance showing the latest building code adoption by the community to be considered for their scoring. If a federally recognized tribal government has not adopted the code as listed above, the tribe must demonstrate alternative compliance with IBC and IRC 2021 or 2024 versions, or they have to be covered under another jurisdictions, could be the state or a territory. The jurisdiction's code adoption status to receive the point allotment. Building code enforcement will be evaluated using the Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule B6, which is an independent assessment of a community's building code adoption and enforcement activities. To receive the 10 points allotment for local building code enforcement, a subapplicant must have a B6 rating between 1 and 5, which is considered by FEMA as a disaster-resistant code. This requirement can be met by either their commercial or residential rating, and it has to be available when the application is submitted. Bureau states have their own insurance rating organization that is not part of the Insurance Service Office ISO. These are some tips for applicants regarding B6 ratings. Communities intending to apply for BRIC funding are encouraged to initiate the process as soon as possible. Request a B6 survey at the ISO mitigation website, and any questions can be directed to b6info@bric.com. B6 scores for tribal applicants and subapplicants are required, but can be dependent on the relationship between the local municipality and the tribal entity that determines how building code requirements are managed. Finally, if a project sub-application has not received any points in Subcriterion 3.1, 5 points could be allotted if the subapplicant can provide a narrative demonstrating that they hold higher standards for the primary hazard they have identified in their sub-application and that their project intends to mitigate. Some examples are provided in the program support material, and they are also included in the slide. Subapplicants should submit the narrative in FEMA Go in a file with a title including the text "Alternative Higher Standards" to be considered for these points. A sub-application will receive 5 points if the community or communities that the project benefit meet the small impoverished community definition at Title 42, United States Code Section 5133A, and the BRIC funding opportunity requirements. And this includes a population of 3,000 or fewer identified by the applicant, and it is an economically disadvantaged, with residents having an average per capita annual income not exceeding 80% of the national per capita income, based on the best available data from the U.S. Census Bureau. Jurisdictions meeting the small impoverished community definition are also eligible for up to 90% federal, 10% non-federal cost share. Some tips for the subapplicant that will help FEMA determine if they are a small impoverished community are: ensure the community and location sections accurately identify the small impoverished community, including the Community Information System CIS info where applicable. Answer yes to the question, is this a small impoverished community, in the budget section in FEMA Go. If another community is applying on behalf of a small impoverished community, include a letter authorizing the application, signed by an authorized community representative. The letter should provide contact information for both the community and the applicant subapplicant, and also attach documentation supporting the small impoverished status using data from the U.S. Census American Communities Survey on population and per capita income. Criteria number 5, evaluate how the project reduces risk. And this criterion evaluates the strength, in particular to how the project effectively reduced risk, how the project increased resilience within the community based on their primary natural hazard risk, and if the project realized ancillary benefits other than their project's primary risk reduction objective. To receive the full 20 points, detailed descriptions must clearly and completely address all the points above. Partial or less complete answers will receive partial score. Subapplicants should include a clear description of how the project addresses the previously mentioned items in the scope of work section in FEMA Go or in a clearly labeled attachment. This narrative should focus on how the project achieves risk reduction and specify what extent or what community benefits from it. How the project will improve resilience. Resilience refers to the capacity to prepare for expected hazards, adapt to evolving conditions, and withstand and quickly recover from disruptions. Also, how the proposed project will generate ancillary benefits and clearly describe those benefits. The sub-application should reference any data, information, and documents provided that clearly supports and demonstrates how the project complies with the objectives of this criterion. The final criterion evaluates how the project will be implemented, and especially how is the strength of the project to cost management, schedule management, successful implementation of the project, and who is the technical and managerial staff in charge of the project. To receive the full 10 points, detailed descriptions must clearly and completely address all the points above. Partial or less complete answers will receive partial score. Sub-applicants should include a clear description of how the project addresses these items in the narrative of the scope of work section in FEMA Go, or in a clearly labeled attachment. The narrative should focus on describing how the sub-applicant is approaching the main issues of cost management of an infrastructure project. Provide a detailed schedule for the project that includes at a minimum the key project milestones and how the schedule will be managed and controlled. Describe the monitoring strategy and benchmarking that will be established to define progress and to evaluate the successful implementation of the project. Also identify the project manager that will oversee the project delivery, as well as the technical staff, county, township engineer, project engineer, a planner, etc., and any other resources that will be used to successfully implement the project. Sub-applicant could include examples of similar projects, either by project type or project size, where some of these approaches and processes were successfully implemented to demonstrate how the project complies with the objectives of this criterion. Next, my colleague Kelly Flicka will discuss application pitfalls and best practices. Kelly?
Thanks, Rafa. As we move into the next section, we'll focus on application best practices and minimum eligibility requirements for BRIC. These slides are designed to help applicants and sub-applicants avoid common pitfalls and ensure their submissions meet program standards. We'll cover what FEMA looks for in a complete and eligible application, including key documentation, scope of work, and alignment with program priorities. By following these best practices and understanding eligibility criteria, you can maximize your chances of success. As you're working on your sub-application, it's important to double-check that it meets all the requirements to be eligible. These are some of the most common reasons sub-applications are found ineligible during eligibility and completeness reviews. Taking the time to ensure your sub-application is complete and aligns with these requirements will help your project move forward smoothly. The NOFO is a great resource to help guide you through each of these requirements, as well as the HME policy guide. For example, does the applicant or sub-applicant have an approved mitigation plan at the time of application period close? Applicants and sub-applicants must have a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan in place for project sub-applications by the application deadline. If the plan is missing or expired, the hazard mitigation project sub-application is automatically ineligible. Is a detailed budget submitted? A complete, itemized budget must be included. Lump sum budgets or missing budget details are not accepted and will result in ineligibility. Is the activity eligible in the program? The proposed activity must be eligible under BRIC as defined in the NOFO and program guidance. Is the scope of work complete and well described? The scope of work must be clear, detailed, and aligned with the project's goals, schedule, and budget. Incomplete or vague descriptions are a common reason for ineligibility. Is the applicant or subapplicant eligible? Only eligible entities can apply. We covered this earlier in the presentation. Cost effectiveness. If applicable, did you submit a benefit cost analysis? For projects that require a benefit cost analysis, or BCA, the analysis must be included and demonstrate cost effectiveness. Missing or incomplete BCAs are a frequent reason for denial. If the project is under 1 million, have you submitted a narrative that includes qualitative and quantitative data demonstrating the benefits and cost effectiveness of the project? Is there confirmation that the project does not duplicate other federally funded programs? The project cannot duplicate funding or activities already covered by other federal programs. If there's duplication, the sub-application will be found ineligible. We see some frequent issues with BRIC sub-applications and have some recommended best practices to address them. A key takeaway is the importance of submitting complete and well-organized documentation. Missing or unclear attachments are a common reason for ineligibility. Please also use a complete and acronym-free title that is reflective of the activities in your project. Answer all questions in FEMA Go and upload all required documents. Make sure your scope of work, budget, and attachments tell the same story. Required documents include environmental planning and historic preservation, or EHP documentation, which we will dive into more detail momentarily, correct GPS coordinates, consultation correspondence with state agencies or federal agencies. Be sure to provide accurate information in the EHP checklist. It's also critical to ensure your project aligns with program requirements and is submitted under the correct funding category and sub-application type in FEMA Go. Management costs are another area where mistakes happen. Be sure to request them in the right place and at the right time, as additional funds can't be added later. If you're ever unsure about a requirement or how to categorize your project, don't hesitate to reach out to your state hazard mitigation officer, tribal liaison, or FEMA regional office for guidance. Think of your application as telling a story. Every section, scope, budget, schedule, and supporting documents should reinforce the same message and demonstrate that you've thought through the details. Most of the problems with technical feasibility are related to unclear information and/or missing information and documentation. Another important problem is not having a clear description of the level of protection and not meeting the design standard. Technical feasibility is about showing that your project isn't just a good idea on paper, it's actually achievable, safe, and effective in the real world. FEMA reviewers need to be confident that your project can be built as proposed, will function as intended, and will truly reduce risk. This means your application should be internally consistent and supported by credible technical evidence. It's not enough to say a project will work. You need to show how and why, using recognized standards and clear documentation. This helps FEMA quickly verify your project's readiness and effectiveness. Ultimately, strong technical feasibility makes your project more competitive and helps ensure it can move forward smoothly if selected for funding. We see common pitfalls when subapplicants document their cost effectiveness. FEMA needs to see that the benefits of your project clearly outweigh the cost. The benefit cost analysis, or BCA, is how you demonstrate this. A strong BCA is more than just running the numbers. It's about providing clear, well-supported evidence for every input and assumption. For example, missing building-specific information like type, use, or lowest floor elevation, or unclear data about the population served by utilities can make it difficult for reviewers to validate your project's benefits. One of the most common pitfalls we see is submitting inconsistent or incomplete BCA documentation. This includes cases where multiple BCAs are submitted, the benefit-cost ratio in the subapplication doesn't match the attachments, or the analysis can't be recreated with the provided documentation. Reviewers need to be able to follow your calculations and understand your data sources. It's also essential to use the correct BCA tools and modules. Using the wrong approach or applying pre-calculated benefits when they don't fit the project can result in an ineligible application. Another frequent issue is when the basis for estimating damages in the BCA is unclear or unsupported, or when scenario events aren't justified with solid information. Make sure your supporting documentation matches your analysis and use justification boxes in the BCA toolkit whenever possible. On many occasions, the cost effectiveness narrative for less than $1 million projects does not have enough information to develop a benefit cost ratio, or BCR. Submit a complete narrative that includes qualitative and quantitative data demonstrating the benefits and costs effectiveness of the project following FEMA instructions. Next, Denoya Woods will discuss common pitfalls associated with environmental planning and historic preservation.
Thanks, Kelly. Today we'll be speaking on planning and historic preservation to discuss sub-application elements so that pitfalls can be avoided and each peer reviews can be as seamless as possible. Environmental planning and historic preservation, EHP compliance is very important and is required by law. Every BRIC sub-application must pass through environmental compliance review before funding can be awarded for any BRIC project. A common pitfall is waiting until late in the project development or execution stages to address EHP requirements. The best practice is for a subapplicant, to front load EHP concerns at the earliest possible stage of application development while developing the project scope of work. The subapplicant should identify the permits required to execute the project and also identify potential impacts on biological and cultural resources. This will help to streamline each peer review of the subapplication and avoid delays. Upon any upload any environmental studies, photos, and maps, and clearly reference them in your subapplication. These are essential for each peer review, and having this information upfront will reduce requests for information, or RFIs, after the subapplication has been submitted. Very important required EHP information include accurate site descriptions, especially accurate GPS coordinates and decimal degrees, descriptions of ground disturbing activities, consultations or correspondence with the State Historic Preservation Office or Officer, SHPO, or Tribal Historic Preservation Office or Officer, the TIPO, and other federal regulatory agencies such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Army Corps of Engineers. You must provide accurate information in the EHP checklist located in FEMA Go, which essentially highlights some elements such as age of buildings, the date of construction of any facility, especially for structures that are over 45 years old. Please utilize the EHP resources and the notice of funding for any EHP specific information you need prior to submitting your sub-application. Additional EHP resources are available in the various technical job aids on FEMA.gov. I will now hand it over to our FEMA Go expert, Kalpana Singh, to walk us through how to apply for the BRIC grant in FEMA Go.
Thank you, Denoya. Good afternoon, everybody. Next, we're going to walk through how to apply to BRIC as a tribal government in FEMA's online grant system, or as you call FEMA Grants Outcome or FEMA Go. We'll cover who needs to do what in the system, key steps for setting up your account, and the important deadlines you need to be aware of. All eligible applicants must submit their BRIC applications through FEMA Go. FEMA provides technical user manuals and support materials in FEMA Go, specifically for hazard mitigation assistant grants, and we strongly encourage you to use those resources as you prepare. The application period opened on March 25th, 2026. If you experience technical issues with FEMA Go that are outside your control, you must notify FEMA no later than 3 p.m. Eastern Time on July 21st, 2026. So that we have enough time to help you resolve the issues. All applicants must submit and received in FEMA Go by 3 p.m. Eastern Time on July 23rd, 2026. Late application, unfortunately, cannot be accepted. First-time FEMA Go users should determine if applying as an applicant or sub-applicant. If applying as sub-applicant, you should connect with FEMA Go. You should connect with the organization that would be submitting the grant application, such as a state, tribe, or tribal government. Confirm your SAM.gov account and unique identity identifier, or as we call UEI, are active. Set up a login.gov account using your work email. Connect with eBiz POC identified on SAM.gov account to add an authorized organization representative to the team, or as you call AOR. Refer to the FEMA Go Startup Guide for more information or troubleshooting scenarios. If you're a returning FEMA Go user, confirm SAM.gov account and UEI are active. This is an annual renewal process. AORs, please review team members and update roles. Remove members who are no longer with organization. Ensure there is at least one AOR on the team. Redundancy is better if AOR ever departs or unavailable. Ensure all team members can log in. Refer to FEMA Go Startup Guide for more information, please. Within FEMA Go, the authorized organization representative, or AOR, must create the main grants application before any sub-applications can be started. Once the AOR signs the required assurances and certifications, FEMA Go generates an application ID. After that, sub-applications can be created, linked to the grant, and then submitted for internal review. The AOR reviews each sub-application, makes any needed adjustment with the sub-applicant, and then submits them to FEMA one by one. As soon as the first application is submitted to FEMA, the overall application changes from pending. For sub-applicants, the sub-organization authorized representative, or SAR, is the person who creates the sub-application in FEMA Go and links it to the parent organization through which it will be submitted. It's important to choose the correct title and sub-application type up front, because you cannot change those once the sub-application has been submitted to FEMA. Management cost applications are only for the main grant level applicant. Sub-applicants will include their management cost as subrecipient management costs within the budget section of their sub-application. Each section of the sub-applications allows documents upload, so use those fields to attach your scope of work, budget support, maps, and other materials. For more details, you could refer to FEMA's pass-through application and sub-application guides for FEMA Go. This slide shows where to add subrecipient management costs, or SRMC, in FEMA Go. To see the management cost option, you first need to add at least one other cost type, such as construction or equipment, into your budget. After you've entered that initial cost estimate, scroll back up in the budget section and then select the blue Add Cost Type button. At that point, management cost will appear in the drop-down menu. Select management cost and then add your SRMC lines, such as salaries, supplies, travel, or office space rental, clearly describing how each will support managing your BRIC subaward. SRMC can be up to 5% of your total sub-application budget. It is critical to include SRMC at the time of application. You'd not be able to add it after submission, so please double check your budget before you submit. Once you've selected management cost as cost type, the next step is to add the specific line items that describe exactly how you'll use these funds. You'll enter each line item separately, so FEMA can clearly see what you're requesting and why. Common SRMC examples include equipment, office space rental, staff salaries, supplies, and travel directly related to managing and administering your BRIC subaward. Each cost must be reasonable, necessary, and clearly linked to grant management activities. not to the construction or implementation work itself. If you have multiple types of management costs, you can add each by selecting additional items from the drop-down menu. Before you finalize your budget, confirm that the total SRMC request does not exceed 5% of your total sub-application budget, and that every line item is clearly labeled and justified in your narrative and supporting documents. Reminder, applicants must add SRMC as a separate line, the budget. If not requested at submission, additional funds will not be provided later. Now I'll hand it back to my colleague Kelly to share important resources for the program. Thank you.
Thanks, Kalpna. Finally, we'll cycle through a few slides that contain links to resources that may be helpful as you develop your sub-application. FEMA offers a range of resources, including guides, toolkits, and online platforms to support development and submission of BRIC and hazard mitigation assistance grant applications. Some of these include programmatic materials, like the program support material for the evaluation criteria for the BRIC national competition, BRIC fact sheet, and BRIC website. HMA guides, including the 2025 Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program and Policy Guide, HMA Cost Share Guide, and HMA Job Aids. Other resources that may be helpful related to benefit cost analysis, FEMA Go, building codes, hazard mitigation assistance, environmental planning and historic preservation, and Buy America are featured on the right. Applicants should review program materials, eligibility requirements, and compliance guidance to ensure their documents meet all criteria for upcoming NOFOs. FEMA helplines are available to support applicants and sub-applicants with application submission issues, program questions, benefit cost analysis, building science guidance, and Build America, Buy America Act compliance. Sub-applicants are encouraged to reach out to their state hazard mitigation officer as the primary point of contact for questions and assistance. You can also find the contact information for these helplines on the BRIC page at FEMA.gov. Visit www.fema.gov/BRIC-contacts for details. With that, I will turn it over to John and Gargiola, who will help guide us through the Q&A portion of the webinar.
Thank you very much, Kelly. I will serve as our question and answer moderator, and we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes for this session. And if you haven't done so already, please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A pod located at the bottom of your screen. And if you enter the questions there, our subject matter experts will do their best to address it. Please note that the chat function is disabled and so should not be used for the Q&A. And now, as we begin with these questions, I will be assisted by Lauren Garrity. Okay, Lauren, our first question. Will the PowerPoint slides and a recording from today be posted following the presentation?
Hey, John, great question, and happy to cover this at the outset. So yes, we have recorded this session, and we will be posting it on FEMA.gov on the events page in the next couple of days. So yes, we've recorded. Yes, we will be posting. I want to make one additional note or clarification here that FEMA's application deadline, while our application deadline for this Notice of Funding Opportunity is on July 23rd, Application deadlines may be, our application deadline may be later than deadlines that are set by the applicants, such as states or other tribal nations. Then those application deadlines have been set for their sub-applicants. And so we're encouraging all sub-applicants to coordinate closely with their state or tribal nation office to ensure that the sub-application is submitted on time and will be included with the overall application to FEMA. So quick clarification there. Apologies for stumbling over my words, but just wanted to make sure that we're plugging that as well. Back to you, John.
Lauren, thank you. No, it's very important clarification. Next question is about cost share. For tribal governments seeking the 90-10 cost share as a small impoverished community, how would you recommend determining this status and relaying that information into the application?
Thank you, John. This is a super important question, and I'm glad it was asked. So we have a program support material that does provide additional information on this. It's posted on our BRIC website. If you go to program resources, you'll find it. And then in FEMA Go, please ensure that the community and the location sections are accurately identify the small impoverished community, including the community information system information where applicable. There's also a question that you want to answer yes to, and that question is this a small impoverished community? You'll find that question in the budget section in FEMA Go. And then you'll also want to attach supporting documentation, and that is a small impoverished community status letter, and that should leverage information from the U.S. Census American Community Survey, and include population and per capita income information. And so all of this is also highlighted in our program support material, and so would also plug that information as well for folks to check out.
Okay, Lauren, important details there. Thank you. Here's our next question. We were under the impression that the benefit cost analysis project narrative for projects under $1 million was no longer allowable. The last bullet on the quick eligibility and completeness check slide in the presentation seems to contradict this. Can you please clarify? Can we clarify that, Lauren?
Yes, John, thank you. Happy to clarify. Projects with a total cost of under $1 million at the time of submission, yes, they may be evaluated for cost effectiveness using a narrative. That narrative should include the qualitative and quantitative data that demonstrates the benefits and cost effectiveness of the project. So yes, we will include, or we will honor that narrative for under projects that are submitted under $1 million. The cost effectiveness narrative is a written description of the benefits and costs of the proposed project. And again, that should include the qualitative and quantitative data. FEMA will use the information included in that narrative as well as publicly available data to complete the benefit cost ratio. So in summary, yes, we will include the project narrative for projects under $1 million. And thank you for that helpful question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Lauren. This next question is set aside. It's a set aside question. Does the tribal set aside apply only to direct application from the tribes, or would it also apply if a tribe applied through a state as well?
Thanks, John. So the tribal set-aside is only available to tribes applying directly to FEMA as applicants. Tribes that are applying as sub-applicants through a state are not eligible for the tribal set-aside. And so if they're if they're applying as subapplicants to the state, they will be considered under the state or tribal categories, and that would be for the allocation as well as the building code plus up.
Great, appreciate that. This next question, this is from a tribal nation in Alaska. Our tribe is located in Alaska. How do tribal communities maximize points without building codes?
Great question, John. Thank you. Tribal communities in Alaska, they can maximize points in the BRIC national competition by focusing on the evaluation criteria beyond building code adoption. So if formal building codes are not in place, communities and tribal nations can still earn points by providing a narrative, and that narrative should demonstrate the use of higher standards for the primary hazard addressed in their project. So that's how they can get a few points in that criterion. Additionally, points can be maximized through other national competition criteria. And this would include by submitting projects that are construction ready. So Rafa earlier talked about the first national competition criteria, which really prioritizes those construction ready projects. The second would be by qualifying as a new applicant or a small impoverished community. So getting those points under those two criteria. And then third, providing strong narratives for the last two criteria, which are risk reduction and implementation measures. I'm going to plug our program support material again. So we recommend reviewing the program support material. That is titled The Evaluation Criteria for Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities National Competition for Fiscal Year 24-25. It has detailed guidance on our scoring criteria and tips for strengthening your sub-applications in the national competition. So highly, highly, highly recommend pulling this down, reviewing it. It has some of those tips and tricks to make your sub-application more competitive. And you can find this document on FEMA.gov at the BRIC webpage, again under program resources.
Really great information there, Lauren. Thank you so much.
I will also add, John, sorry, one more
yes,
thought here.
Please.
Is that we encourage tribal communities to adopt the latest edition of codes. And so that will, again, like help in the future with the national competition. And we are providing funds through the Building Code Plus Up specifically for tribal nations to help them with building code adoption. And so, yeah, closing thought on that question.
No, I really like that. And we know that with each latest edition of the building codes, they become more and more resilient. Very good. If I can ask you another cost share question, please. We got this one. Is there a cost share requirement for capability and capacity building activities?
Yes, in short, there is a cost share requirement for capability and capacity building activities under BRIC. The standard cost share is 75-25, 75 federal, 25 non-federal. The only exception to this is for small impoverished communities where those qualifying communities would have an enhanced cost share of 90% federal and 10% non-federal. So in short, yes, there is a cost share requirement for capability and capacity building activities, and you may be able to enhance the federal cost share if you're a qualifying small impoverished community.
Okay. And Lauren, if we can get one more question in, I would like to ask, this question came in. The NOFO states, in the event that more than $50 million in sub-applications is submitted under the tribal set-aside, the capability and capacity building activities and the highest ranked hazard mitigation project sub-applications that are up to $50 million will be selected. So will the ranking of tribal applications use the national competition evaluation criteria?
Great question. So in FEMA Go, at the applicant level, applicants will rank all of their sub-applications. In the event that more than $50 million in sub-applications are submitted under the tribal set-aside, the capability and capacity building activities and the highest ranked hazard mitigation project sub-applications will be selected up to that $50 million threshold, or that total funding amount for the tribal set-aside. Then once the $50 million amount is reached and those sub-applications have been selected up to that amount, all of the remaining tribal hazard mitigation project sub-applications will be evaluated under the national competition, and they will be evaluated using those national competition evaluation criteria. So I hope that answers the question. Anything kind of over that $50 million threshold will be evaluated using the national competition evaluation criteria.
Very good, Lauren. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of the questions and for our subject matter experts working on them behind the scenes. At this point, we want to bring you to closing. And we do have an ask for you. Where we're going to hear from our Assistant Administrator for Hazard Mitigation Directorate, but you'll see a slide here that asks for your feedback so that we can get your feedback and improve upon these engagements. So here is the slide, and here's the SurveyMonkey link. But let me turn it over to our Assistant Administrator for Hazard Mitigation Directorate, Kristen Fontenot. Kristen?
Thank you, John. And thank you all for joining us today. And thank you to the tribal partners for your time, your questions, and your continued leadership in this space. I also want to thank the FEMA team, our regional colleagues, and everyone who helped support today's discussion and make this available to all of you. BRIC is one of FEMA's key tools to help communities reduce future disaster losses before they happen. For tribal nations, that can mean projects that strengthen critical infrastructure, reduce risk from natural hazards, support hazard-resistant building codes and standards, and help protect the facilities, systems, and services that your communities are depending on. As you prepare your applications, I encourage you to focus on 3 specific things. First, start early. Confirm your SAM.gov registration, unique entity identifier, FEMA Go access, and required documentation. Second, be clear. A strong application should explain the risk your community is facing, why the project matters, and how it will reduce future disaster impacts, and why it is ready now to move forward. And third, stay connected. FEMA's regional teams, tribal liaisons, FEMA Go support, benefit cost analysis support, and environmental and historic preservation resources are available to help you. Each tribal nation understands its own risks, priorities, infrastructure, land, cultural resources, and community needs. We here at FEMA are here to be a partner in supporting mitigation investments that reflect those priorities and lead to real outcomes. Thank you again sincerely for participating today and for the work you are doing to protect your communities, strengthen infrastructure, and advance resilience for future generations. Before we close, I will say the same thing John just did and ask that you complete the webinar survey. The link is available on the screen here and through the Zoom platform. I cannot stress enough that your feedback only helps us improve future deliveries like this one. Thank you so much again for your time today. Take care.